Ever get into like a heated book debate online and feel like you're talking past each other?
Oh, totally. I've been there.
It's like, did we even read the same book?
Yeah.
Well, today we're diving deep into Listen, The Art of Effective Communication by Dale Carnegie and Associates.
Ooh, good one.
And it turns out there's a lot more to really listening than we might think.
Way more. And it can totally change those online book discussions for the better.
Exactly. Like the book kicks off with this story about two kids arguing over an orange.
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
They both want it right.
Like total standoff.
But when the mom actually listens, she figures out one kid just wants the juice, the other the peel.
Classic example. It shows how hearing and listening are two totally different things.
So true. We might hear the words in a book review, but are we really understanding the why behind them?
That's where things get interesting. Listen dives into these concepts of frames and filters, which basically shape how we interpret everything.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly are frames?
So imagine our experiences and beliefs are like a picture frame, right?
Okay, I can see that.
And we kind of hold that frame up to everything we see and hear, including books.
So two people could read the same book, but their frames make them focus on totally different things.
Exactly. One person's frame might highlight the plot twists, another person's the character development.
And that explains why their reviews might sound like they read different books.
Totally. Then you've got filters, which are like those conscious choices about what info we let in or block out.
Okay, so that's like me skimming past all the love triangle stuff if I just can't stand romance.
Precisely. Your filter is saying, nope, not interested. And recognizing these frames and filters in ourselves and in others is crucial for understanding those wildly different takes we see online.
That makes so much sense. It's like suddenly all those conflicting reviews start to click into place.
It's like a light bulb moment. And listen, takes it even further by describing different types of listeners we encounter in these discussions.
Ooh, yeah, they list 7 right. And I bet some of them are all too familiar in the book reviews 1 comment section.
You bet! We've got the preoccupieds, constantly multitasking, barely paying attention.
Oh gosh, I'm totally guilty of that sometimes.
Then there's the out to lunchers, daydreaming about who knows what. Total missing the point.
And let's not forget the interrupters, always jumping in before anyone else can finish a thought.
Classic. And of course, the whatevers. Scrolling and liking, but not really engaging in the discussion.
Those are the conversation killers.
Totally. Then we have the combatives who approach every discussion like a debate, ready to argue.
Oh yeah, those comments can get intense.
For sure. Then there are the analysts always overthinking, dissecting every detail, maybe missing the big picture.
And finally, the engagers, the ones who make online book discussions so enriching.
Absolutely. They're fully present, asking thoughtful questions, really trying to understand other perspectives.
They're the gold standard for sure.
Totally. And the cool thing is, listen, doesn't just label these types. It helps us figure out which one we are and how to become more like those engagers.
So we can all level up our listening game. But it goes even deeper, right?
Sure.
They talk about different levels of listening too.
Yep. 4 levels, starting with pretending to listen, which we've all done at some point.
Oh yeah, especially during those long Zoom meetings.
Totally. Then there's listening just to prepare your response.
I mean, you're not really absorbing what they're saying. You're just waiting for your turn to talk.
So true. And that's so common in online debates. We're too busy crafting the perfect comeback.
Then we move up to listening to learn where you're genuinely trying to understand the other person's view.
That's where those engagers really shine. They're actively trying to learn from others.
And finally, the highest level, listening for empathy.
This is where the magic happens. It's about connecting on a deeper level, understanding their emotions, even the unspoken stuff.
It's like seeing beyond the words and into their heart.
Exactly. And that's what can transform those heated book debates into meaningful conversations where we actually learn and grow together.
This is blowing my mind. I'm starting to see book reviews in a whole new light. But listen, doesn't stop there. It dives into the fascinating world of nonverbal communication, which feels even more relevant now as we think about how much of our communication happens online.
Oh, absolutely. Even in written communication, we're constantly sending and receiving nonverbal signals.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, think about it. The way we structure our sentences, The words we choose, the punctuation we use, even the emojis we sprinkle in.
Oh, yeah, that's true. A single exclamation mark can totally change the vibe of a sentence.
Exactly. And on Book Reviews 1, where we don't have those in-person cues like facial expressions and body language, it's easy to misinterpret someone's tone and intent.
So those subtle cues become even more important online.
Absolutely. Listen, reminds us to pay attention to things like capitalization, bolding, even the frequency and timing of responses.
And like a whole secret language we need to decode.
And decoding that language requires not just reading the words, but also listening to those unspoken messages conveyed through those subtle nonverbal cues. It's about paying attention to the rhythm and flow of the conversation, sensing the emotional undercurrents, and reading between the lines to truly understand what the other person is trying to communicate.
This has given me a whole new perspective on how I approach online book discussions.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Listen, the Art of Effective Communication.
Where we're figuring out how to be better listeners, especially in those sometimes intense online book discussions.
Yeah, we were just talking about all those different levels of listening, from like pretending to pay attention
to that deep, empathetic listening.
And that got me thinking about how we actually navigate those disagreements online.
Right, like when you have totally different takes on a book, but you still want to like have a good conversation.
Exactly. Listen, gives us some great tools for that, starting with understanding that conflict often comes from those differing frames we talked about.
Oh, right, like that orange analogy.
Exactly. Two people looking at the same thing,
but focusing on totally different parts.
Like one person's all about the juicy sweetness and the other's complaining about the bitter peel.
Same book, different frames, different reaction.
And Listen actually breaks conflict down into 5 stages.
Okay, 5 stages of book review battle. I'm intrigued.
Well, think of it like this. First, you have that initial potential for disagreement. Like 2 reviewers with contrasting tastes reading the same book.
Okay, so the conflict's brewing, but no one's thrown any punches yet.
Exactly. Then comes perceived conflict, where those different views become obvious. Like maybe one reviewer posts a scathing critique.
And the other one who loved the book is like, hold up.
Boom! Conflict acknowledged.
And that's when things can get spicy.
Right. Felt conflict is where the emotions kick in: frustration, anger, maybe even hurt feelings.
Those comment threads can get brutal.
Yeah, and that can lead to manifest conflict, where those emotions turn into actions.
Like name-calling, trolling people getting blocked or banned.
It's like a virtual war zone sometimes.
Okay, so how do we, like, de-escalate things? How do we keep those book discussions civil, even when we disagree?
Listen offers a 3-phase approach that's super helpful.
3 phases. Okay, lay it on me.
First, we got to resist that urge to immediately defend our own position.
Like take a deep breath before hitting reply.
Exactly. Instead, we shift our focus to understanding the other person's view.
So we try to see the book through their frame, even if it's totally different from ours.
That's it. We ask open-ended questions, actively listen to their responses, and try and get why they feel so strongly.
But what if their review feels like a personal attack? Like they're dissing my favorite author or something?
That's where phase 2 comes in, explaining our own perspective.
Okay, so we get to defend our beloved books.
We do, but in a way that doesn't make things worse.
So no all caps rants or excessive exclamation points.
Right. We start by acknowledging their feelings, showing that we get where they're coming from.
Like, I hear you. I totally see why you feel that way.
Exactly. Then we can explain our own view without putting theirs down.
Okay, so it's not about winning the argument. It's about understanding each other.
Right. And this is where those nonverbal cues we talked about become super important.
Even in writing.
Yep. Our tone and word choice can make a huge difference.
So we can be firm, but still respectful.
Exactly. Okay, so we've listened to understand their view, explained our own respectfully. Now what?
Do we just agree to disagree and go our separate ways?
Ideally, we move to phase 3, where we try to find a resolution that works for both people.
A compromise?
Kind of. It might involve finding some common ground, exploring different interpretations, or even just agreeing to disagree respectfully.
It's like that orange story again. Everyone gets a piece of what they want.
Exactly. And Listen reminds us that conflict isn't always bad. When we approach it the right way, it can actually make those online communities stronger.
I love that. It's like turning those heated debates into opportunities for growth.
And speaking of different approaches, Listen talks about different conflict styles using animal analogies.
Ooh, tell me more about these book battle animals.
Well, we've got the lion, the ostrich, the dog, and the fish.
Okay, who's who in this zoo?
The lion is all about winning, roaring their opinions, and prioritizing their own view over everything else.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen some lions in the book reviews one comment section.
They're those reviewers who leave scathing comments and never back down.
Makes sense. What about the ostrich?
Ostriches avoid conflict like the plague. They bury their heads in the sand, hoping the problem will just vanish.
I think I've been an ostrich a few times. Honestly, conflict can be exhausting.
It can be, but avoiding it doesn't usually help. Then there's the dog, all about harmony and keeping everyone happy.
Oh, that's cute.
They're the peacemakers always trying to smooth things over.
Even if it means not saying what they really think.
Sometimes, yeah. And finally, we have the fish.
Okay, tell me about the fish.
They're the collaborators swimming together to find a solution that works for everyone.
They're like the ultimate team players.
Right. They're all about those win-win situations.
So we've got the competitive lion, the avoidant ostrich, the accommodating dog, and the collaborative fish does listen. Say which style is the best.
Not really. It's more about recognizing our own tendencies and those of the people we're interacting with.
So we can adjust our approach depending on who we're talking to.
That's it. Like if you're dealing with a lion, you might need to be more assertive in expressing your own view.
But still respectful, of course.
Of course. And with an ostrich, you might need to gently encourage them to speak up.
Let them know their opinion matters.
Right. And with a dog, you might need to make sure they're not just agreeing to keep the peace.
Make sure everyone's voice is heard.
And with a fish, you can embrace that collaborative spirit and find those win-win solutions together.
Okay, so no one right way to handle conflict. It's about being adaptable and understanding the dynamics.
Exactly. It's like having a whole toolkit for communication.
This is so helpful. I can totally see how knowing these conflict styles can change how we approach those online book discussions. But listen, goes beyond just handling conflict right. It dives into practical techniques for becoming better listeners in any situation.
For sure. And one of the most powerful tools is asking the right questions. The book introduces this model called the question staircase.
A question staircase. Now I'm really intrigued.
Imagine a staircase with 3 levels. We start at the bottom with basic, factual, elementary questions.
Okay, so in a book discussion, that might be something like, who's your favorite character? Or what did you think of the ending?
Perfect examples. Those questions get the conversation going, but they're pretty surface level.
So how do we climb to the next level?
We use elaborative questions. These are open-ended questions that encourage the other person to share more.
So instead of, did you like the book?
Yeah.
We might ask, what aspects of the book resonated with you the most?
Nice. You're getting it. By asking those elaborative questions, we get way more than a simple yes or no.
We're inviting them to share their unique perspective and personal connection with the book.
Exactly. But we're not done yet. There's one more level to climb.
Bring it on. I'm ready to reach the top of this question staircase.
The top level is evaluative questions.
Ooh, sounds fancy.
They are. These questions invite the speaker to share their opinions, values, and judgments to go beyond just describing their experience and explore the deeper meaning and impact of the book.
So instead of what other books by this author has you read, it's more like what makes this author's writing style so unique?
Exactly. You're asking them to really think about their reading experience and connect it to their own values and beliefs.
Wow. I'm already feeling like a better listener just from knowing about this question staircase.
It's a game changer for sure. And it's not just for book discussions. It works in any conversation.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Listen,
where we're learning how to really hear what people mean.
especially when we're talking about books.
Exactly. We've been breaking down those communication barriers.
Unpacking how our experiences shape our interpretations.
And even figuring out how to handle those tricky disagreements.
But now we're getting into something a little more mysterious.
Ooh, mysterious. Tell me more.
Well, Listen talks about this concept of intuition.
Intuition, you mean like that gut feeling you get about a book?
Exactly. That inner voice that's like, this one's going to be a winner. Or, nope, skip this one.
I totally get those feelings all the time. But I always thought they were kind of random.
Me too.
Yeah.
But the book suggests that intuition is actually a form of deep listening.
Wait, so my gut is like a secret listener.
In a way, yeah. It's like tapping into a wisdom that goes beyond our rational minds.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Well, the book says our subconscious is always picking up on stuff, subtle cues and patterns that we might not even notice consciously.
So it's like our subconscious is doing all this background research.
Exactly. And intuition is like tuning into that research, listening to those whispers of insight.
So it's not just random, it's based on something real.
That's the idea. And the cool thing is, listen, it says we can actually cultivate our intuition.
Wait, hold up. Are you telling me I can train my gut to pick better books?
Kind of. It's more about becoming aware of those intuitive nudges and learning to trust them.
Okay, but how do I do that? Do I need to meditate on piles of books?
Not necessarily listen. Suggest things like mindfulness, spending time in nature, even engaging in creative activities.
So it's about quieting the mind and creating space for those insights to pop up.
Exactly. And it's not just about noticing them, it's about trusting them too.
Even when they seem illogical.
Well, that's where discernment comes in. Listen. Encourages us to check our intuitions against our values.
So if my gut tells me to read a book that promotes something I totally disagree with, that's a red flag.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between trusting your gut and using your head.
So intuition and logic are like teammates, not enemies.
Right. They work together to help us make wise choices.
Whether it's choosing books or interpreting reviews.
Speaking of reviews, do you ever get those intuitive vibes from reviews?
Oh, totally. You can sometimes just sense the reviewer's genuine emotions.
Even if their words are saying something different.
Exactly. If they're gushing over a book, but you can tell they're not really feeling it.
Or if they're being super critical, but you can sense their passion for the genre.
Right. Intuition helps us connect with that human element behind the words.
While logic helps us decide if their opinion actually matters to us.
It's a fascinating dance between those two forces.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground.
From basic listening skills to conflict resolution to tapping into the power of our intuition.
And it all comes back to our love of books and the conversations they inspire.
So, dear Book Reviews One community, what are your biggest takeaways from Listen?
Have you ever had an intuitive feeling about a book that turned out to be spot on? Share your stories in the comments below.
We love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Book Reviews One for more bookish adventures.
And don't forget to share this episode with your fellow bookworms. Because as we've learned, listening is a superpower.
And the more we practice it, the richer our conversations and the deeper our connections will be.
Happy reading and happy listening.